everybody, and welcome to Straight to the Point Tennis in our 3-minute racket review series. Today we're going to be taking a look at the 2025 Head Radical Pro Auxetic 2.0. Moving on to the ground strokes with this one, I think it's an exceptional performer, one of my favorite radicals that I've hit in years. One thing I want to shout out is that it does have the same exact mold, the TK352, as the prior two iterations of the radical, Auxetic 1.0 and the 360 Plus graphene. What I will say is the way that the layup is implemented in this radical, it feels so much better than the prior two iterations. Much more plush, stable, just gives you a lot of confidence hitting a ground stroke in a variety of ways, whether that be taking a big spinny cut or hitting something more flattened through the court. Next on to the net play, I'd slate this at about an 8 out of 10. I think the frame with its stock swing weights and stock balance is a little bit cumbersome at the net, and in general, the muted layup isn't the best in terms of string bed feel. Next on to serving, I think I would give this about an 8.5 out of 10. I was really impressed with the power on flat serves and the bite that I was getting on both slice and kick serves. I think the 16x19 string pattern is pretty open. It's definitely a little bit demanding given the high swing weights. I think the Radical Pro comes in at about 330, which is pretty similar to the stock swing weights that we see on the Blade Pro. Moving on to our power section, I'd give this about a 7.7 out of 10. I think for a 98 square inch frame, it's definitely an above average level of power, but it's not so much power that it can compete with more powerful 98 square inch frames like the Technifiber 300S or the Technifiber 305S. I think if you're putting a premium on power, you should look to something that's a little bit more stiff out of the box and has a thicker beam. Even the Radical MP could be a more powerful option for somebody looking for power in a 98 square inch frame. Moving on to our control section, this is probably the biggest strength of the frame in my opinion, despite it having a 16x19 string pattern, which is typically known for more of a balanced approach between power, spin, and control. I think the control on this stick is exceptional. Almost rivals that of the Prestige Pro in my opinion, even the 18x20 pattern. For some reason, I felt like I could really put the ball on a dime using this stick. Felt really confident knowing where the sweet spot was and picking smaller targets on the court. So I'd give it about a 9 out of 10. Next on to spin, I'd give it an 8 out of 10 on this one. I think, like I've mentioned a few times in the review, it's a fairly open 16x19, nothing that's going to blow you out of the water, but it gives you enough spin to take a big cut at a groundie even if you have more extreme grips. In terms of stability, I'd give this a really high mark of a 9 out of 10. I think the way that they distributed the weight allowed for a really stable response in the middle and upper hoop. Moving on to comfort, I think this is where the frame really shines. In my opinion, it has a great blend of dampening and ball feel. In general, I'd give it about a 9.5 out of 10. Next to our flex profile category, I'd classify this as a middle yoke. Next to our touch and responsiveness, I'd give it an 8 out of 10. Back to the nature of the muted layup, I think it does prevent you from getting a great ball feel across the string bed, but regardless, I still felt comfortable hitting a touch volley or a drop shot. Next to our will it lead category, I think this can work for a variety of players in a competitive setting. In 2025, I would say those who prefer thin beams should look here, and those who prefer more thick beams should look elsewhere. Lastly, onto the cosmetic, which I think can be a little polarizing. To me, this is a perfect radical colorway. You can identify it from multiple courts away, and it has that classic orange. Thanks everybody for tuning into this racket review. See you in the next one.